recorded on the computer. And shall I then post it on YouTube first and then on the blog? Is that the recommendation so you can actually move along a bit easier? I see Jaime is saying yes. I see Stacy saying yes. Okay, fine. Then I'll go for YouTube and Hyla comes in with its thumb up. Beautiful. Okay, back to the opening that Eugen is referring to. We are experimenting with things like what can we do to get the people into a different mindset so that they're willing to open up for change, or at least a dialogue for change. Um, and so a video like what Eugen is showing us was the interview with Dr. Fitzgerald and those kind of things. That is interesting, but you have to get the people to actually look at the video, which is a step beforehand still. And
Yeah.
only, yeah, tell me.
Yeah, the interesting thing is about the Einstein-Newton-Darwin video with Michael Fitzgerald. I see many people responding positively about this, but getting the distribution going still remains challenging, so to speak. And that led me to the other one, because the video of Fitzgerald is 20 minutes. That's too long for an eye-opener. So I was wondering whether there is another possibility by making it clear as to where today's communication fails. On the one hand, we have the symptom treatment, and nobody cares on root cause treatment. People can recognize it, smell it, yeah? So if we could make the point, I see in Germany, over the recent year, all of a sudden, I haven't seen that before for a long time, even journalists ask for, yeah, what is the root cause of the problem? Yeah, and before that, it was just, how shall I say, yeah, let's take a method, let's throw it, and then we have taken the action and everybody will wait until, well, maybe nothing is heard about it. So the idea is to really create some contradiction of people solving root causes, throwing yet more IT tools at the problem, or creating yet more models that, well, miss the basic things. And the further trick was to make it that interesting at the end, such that they actually invited to click or to like it and to use the questions that are at the end in their environment and invite others to do the same. Yeah. So if you would perhaps be able to get 100 people or so committing to doing what I've just said, doing the likes, inviting others, asking the same questions in a way possible to get the ball rolling, and the ball rolling. And here are other things like those of Sperry that would fill this gap, another one would fill that gap, and then we could hopefully get out of today's misery of, we know that things need to be done differently, but don't know how. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say where the communication is failing. I would like to see where the communication is actually being successful. But at the same time, we have to realize that if you are looking at different things, I'm writing a blog right now where I compare a analogy, like if you go on a trip for 2,000 kilometers or 2,000 miles, and your starting point is here at home, but you, instead of going in a straight line, you step aside 30 degrees, you end up after 2,000 miles in an extremely different situation. This is exactly happening in our post-war decisions in the 70s and the 50s and the 60s, when we came up with very interesting solutions, such as, for instance, social securities for people who are becoming jobless. But the fund that was created was put under political domain of the government. That is a minor step. But in the end, it becomes a political domain of which in which the fund is being used as a power pressure onto people rather than a bridging function that it was originally meant to be. If we are looking at various of these points of about 20 years ago, or 30 or 50 years ago, they have huge effects right now, and they're creating huge crises as we are facing today. So if we take that same analogy today, that the stepping point, what we are really doing is we are stepping just a little bit aside of the normal flow of people. But the effect of everything that we are doing, even what you're doing with your films and everything, Eugen, you're placing a seed that has an incredible impact, but it is an impact that it takes its time to evolve. And if I look at 10 years back when I started with Sustainocracy, and if I look at where I stand today, I'm totally unsatisfied. But if I look at what has been realized over those 10 years, then I can only be extremely satisfied. So it is like, what is the perspective that we are looking at from a communication point of view? Make your statement. We are not in marketing. We are actually inviting people to do something totally different out of their comfort zone. Are you still there? Because everybody's frozen now.
Do we lose him?
Yes, again.
Lost him.
Oh, I'm back.
Now he's back.
He's back.
I'm
Yes.
back. Yeah, internet is unstable. That is some drama that we are facing lately. Not only always but at my side, but it happens to everybody. Anyway, I don't know how much you heard of what I was saying.
10 years.
10 years back.
Sorry?
10 years back.
Yeah, 20, 30, 50 years back, decisions were made with a huge impact. What's happening? We're still there?
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
still
we're
there.
hearing you, Ken.
All right.
You're
Well,
getting
the same-
interrupted quite a bit.
Well, the same thing happens to you now, Eugen, with the decisions that you impact today with all your videos and everything, that over time, they will have a major impact. But you cannot, it's very difficult to measure at this stage. If I look back my own 10 years, then I can be extremely proud of what has happened over those 10 years. Obviously, I'm not satisfied, but and I think much more, and I'm very ambitious of what everything that we can be achieved. But more than 10 years ago, I was standing all by myself, and now I'm surrounded with all kind of people, institutions, whatever, that are supporting this and are recognizing everything that we've been saying, and taking it as their own and going into the transformation process. So it is not marketing that we are into. We are actually taking people out of their comfort zone and institutions out of their comfort zone. And that is an incredible process that we have to somehow invite people to do and give them the feeling of security and safety that they can do it instead of criticism, and then applaud them not only, but also make sure that in their achievements they can be successful too. I realize also now, this afternoon I was in a meeting with somebody. We're looking at sustainable livelihoods, sustainable places like the real estate and the building of new environments. And we see how the people are managing that. And they're continuously in a cost-saving type of environment. So they are kind of tunnel visioned as a management into this cost saving. And then you come up with sustainable type of solutions that do not fit into the panorama of cost saving. So what we have to do is go into a co-creation model or in a participation model where more people take responsibility for the sustainability than just the organizations themselves. But then you need people who are at the management level, who are much more willing and open to sit at the table to do that co-creation process. Not everybody has that ability. Not everybody has that in. And you need also people like ourselves who connect these people, because by themselves, they will not join automatically that table because there are too many self-interests. So if we create tables and there is somebody who actually sits at the table as a connecting part around the core human values, which are then being shared by all the different parties, then we actually get somewhere. And that is the way it actually happened here in Eindhoven. If there wasn't me, nobody would have cared to actually come together and think about the core human values like health. But there was somebody who stood up and started connecting even all the big industries and all the big, and so I didn't have any power. I didn't have any authority other than the connecting part. If that connecting part is missing, it just doesn't happen because it's not in their daily activity and the comfort zone to do so. And if somebody takes the lead, then they get a kind of a dictatorial role in the whole thing, and they try to get everything out of self-interest to themselves. And there is no sense of equality, right? So.
Yeah, to me, there's absolutely no question about what you're doing. That's absolutely necessary. It's one of the key elements to break through today's thing. What I've experienced lately is that, yeah, as we depend on other organizations, well, we can do something in a small environment where the external dependencies are relatively small or can be overseen, then we can get things done with a face-to-face type of approach, getting people on the table also. But what I run into is when we really want to get the bigger changes done, we depend on other organizations, and I believe I heard the same from Mahendra a while back. We depend on other organizations. If they are still too far away from us, then yeah, somewhere something happens. Somebody says no to something on which we depend, and then our initiatives get stuck again and again. I have experienced that in very recent years a couple of times. A minister, a colleague of mine, spoke with, and we're on the right track. Then the minister was replaced and gone. The opportunity. It has become so normal, so hence that my approach is we need to combine our efforts so that the whole gets pushed even yet over a higher level, and we can get external organizations on board, or at least that they don't oppose us, so we can move forward with what we do.
I had yes, Mahendra.
There will always be people who put blocks on the road. So when you look back at your 10 years, looking back, could you have speeded it up?
No, even if I tried.
If you say 10-year experience and you cannot find places you could have speeded up, we don't have 10 years ahead of us to do many of the things that we need to do. And we have to find strategically what are the entry points.
Yes, Barry wants to intervene too.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to your analogy of picking a direction and heading off and finding out that after so much time you're off course. And this gets back to a root cause of not getting to your destination, which is how often do you need to do a course correction? You know, when they first tried to shoot a missile to the moon, it was ballistic. There was no mid-course correction, and they missed the moon by a huge amount. And then NASA figured out that they had to do at least one mid-course correction. So halfway there, they said, where are we on our course relative to where we should be if we had aimed correctly? And then they tried to do one mid-course correction. Eventually, they learned how many mid-course corrections do they need to do, 2, 3, or even continuous mid-course corrections, so they don't wander too far off course. And in politics and in human systems, you not only need to do mid-course corrections when your program is veering off course, you also have to be running your message in parallel in multiple channels. So one channel may be working for a while, but then that channel stops working. And you gotta emphasize the same message in multiple channels and elevate whichever channel is getting through now. So
Yeah.
not only mid-course corrections in each channel, but emphasizing which channel is working at any one given juncture in this program. And then when you get off course and you're pushing the wrong channel, you realize, oh, off course, not using the best channel to get to where you want to go. So you need much more agility in switching channels, switching media,
Absolutely.
and doing mid-course corrections, taking stock and doing mid-course corrections.
Absolutely right. But then we get to the issue of getting people on board. I was reading a document which referred to a few statements like, I give them the feeling that they are missing the boat or that the boat is sinking. If they're missing the boat is a positive type of thing, like engage and we go afloat and we go further with each other. Many people are actually trying to keep their boat afloat against all kind of odds. And they are kind of tunnel visioned on that. Now, bringing them along to a vision that we are keeping the ship going, but with the modification that are necessary to keep that ship going, and which is a common ship. It's not only the single ship of one of the people. Then we avoid not only sinking, some of them will be sinking. They will be sinking simply because they are not part of this reality anymore. But other ones, they will probably engage because a document can be made clear that if they don't, they are left out. If I look at what I have been doing, it's exactly what Barry said. It's like I tried probably about 3 or 4 or 5 different routes. And in the end, by accident, I stumbled around the one which actually got me to connect everybody together, which was air quality and health. I've been trying to do the same with food and everything, and I've been standing on the toes of just about everybody in the region, and nobody wants to really engage. And still, again, I managed to get a community going, which was pretty relevant, but it was not enough to feed the city or to make the city self-sufficient. And that's a kind of a little frustration, but that can remain in my frustration and trying to bang my head against a closed wall, or I could just wait my time until it is happening. And this morning, in Dutch, we were talking about co-creating these kind of things in a much more effective way than I could do 5 years ago because the space is there. So you're absolutely right. Set out the lines and see what works and what doesn't work. Just don't keep going and put energy on it. So we have to learn to let go also.
But you know, we have another example of lead in petrol. We had all the scientific evidence what it does. Everybody knew how bad it was for your children. It needed 2 senators waiting at a traffic light in New York and talking about their sons who had this asthma and breathing problems. And it turned out they had lead poisoning, and they took it up in Congress, and within weeks it was passed and lead was banned. So, but we cannot wait for this random event that 2 people come in. I think strategically you have to find, and maybe the mistake we are making is we find one avenue and we run with it. When you find one revenue, please look for another 3 channels to get to the same point, and along the way let 2 drop out. So maybe the law of averages will get you better to the destination.
Yeah, for the others, just one quick example. For the others, part of those, I've heard about me saying this. In Germany, there was quite an experience with the last European Parliament election. There was an influencer unknown in the large public. He created a 1-hour video about climate change and was getting that much attention that the politics accepted, the political parties, the ruling parties accepted that they had lost the connection with the people under 30 years of age. Actually, a journalist, a scientific journalist, reviewed what he has done in the video, what he had argued, and concluded this young guy knew more about climate change than the politicians. It was an eye-opener, even for the ruling party of Chancellor Merkel. So there are possibilities. There are, in my experience, there are a couple of things coming together where huge impact becomes possible. We aren't quite there yet, but possibilities are coming together. Fridays for Future, they demand things to be changed, but they still miss this little piece of, how shall I say, well, everybody is looking for effective solutions, but the people in decision-making positions cannot find them. Yeah. So what Barry does, for example, yeah, but what Jean-Paul does, they don't really get to us. We need to run behind them and have greatest difficulties to get the attention. So there must be a way now coming to get the attention needed, though they stop trying to find solutions with the same thinking that created the problem. With that, I'll give it to Jamie.
Okay. Jaime, you wanted to say something.
Yes, Paul. Well, I've mentioned this before, and I hope that I can explain it clear. I insist that, at least in my view, I prefer to see this challenge to change a whole set of paradigms of maybe a core of paradigms that we have been facing for some time into a different and more sustainable path. In my view, I like to see it like a war, but in a good sense. And for thinking strategically, I don't know if surely many of you, or maybe all of you, have read this interesting book of Sun Tzu, the Art of War. This kind of thinking could help us, in my opinion, to advance in a strategic way, focusing, as Barry and you mentioned, Paul, focusing different channels, different strategies, different actors. We could design a strategy to reach the civil society at different levels, using these modern tools of communication, also using maybe not so innovative things, but that could have a strong message. Like, for example, I remember that you invited at some point a guy that was a filmmaker, maybe thinking about these kind of short films that could create consciousness among society, could help a lot, but also focusing a strategy to tackle or to direct to the private sector at different levels, to governments at different levels, to international organizations at different levels. Well, I was checking your figure, the figure that you sent us. It is very, very interesting. I think this kind of figures can be very helpful to not lose the sight of how we are understanding the whole thing in a holistic view. And if I may, at some point, I would like to share another figure, but for that I will have to ask for a new invitation, because I have it on my laptop. If you want, I'll ask the invitation, and at some point in this meeting or in a other meeting, I can show it to you. But it's like an adaptation of the Sustainable Livelihoods Framework that I designed some years ago for the analysis of poverty, but that could be used for different things, in a way to promote sustainable development in its different dimensions: social, environmental, economic, institutional. And in a way, it can give some guidance. At least in my opinion, it has helped me to design anti-poverty strategies and these kind of things. So, but I'll share that with you at some point.
All right, you can share it with us through the email afterwards, or if it's a very short video, I can make you co-host and you can share it with us during this meeting if you think that's relevant. As you speak, I do realize, and also in my environment, that every partner that I have in my activities has different triggers to actually participate. If I talk to government and their motivation to participate is totally different than the business people. And the citizens normally have different motivations too. The very first time government participated in Healthy City program, My Healthy City program, which is a citizens program, then they said, well, we want to participate, not because of health, because that's part of our political charter, but because of innovation. And I said, okay, let's do that. Then your motivation is innovation. But as long as the innovation is helping us to create health. So that was the way we went about it. Communicating with people and institutions along their line of priorities is also very important. And they may be very different. It's not one single line of urgency.
But that's exactly the root cause in my view. Why we don't get through today's system. Everybody is still sitting in its own priorities, in its own box. What we miss are common things, and that brings me to core values, for example. Yeah, core values, the phenomena we have seen with Corona and so forth. There are a couple of things that, well, even if people don't realize this, they're relevant to all the groups. So if we would be able to focus on those that are relevant to all groups, then we would have a common ground nobody else has.
Well, that's true. There were three elements which were decisive in the activities that I have, that they actually started to explode and grow from one community all the way to provincial, 21 municipalities and the ministry and everybody involved. The first one were the core human values like health. That was very important and linked to air quality because nobody had economized those systems yet. So it was kind of a free playing ground where everybody could join, but I could also communicate with each of the participants because they're all human beings, that if they are, like the senator sitting in the traffic light talking about us, their sons, they're just about everybody is human being and has sons and kids and grandkids and whatever. And if we don't care about health, that this is going to be something. And if we join, because then they say, well, we can't take responsibility as a province because there are too many others playing. I say, but no, you can't do that individually, but we can do it together. So let's go together. And that is the thing, the co-creation, the part of participation in the program. That was another key. So the priority is one, from a human values point of view, because it's not covered by the institution. The second one was the multidisciplinary co-creation type of environment where everybody directly is interacting with each other. What can they contribute to make this happen? And then the third point, very important, was me, myself, as a linking pin, as just one thing which unites everything, because there is nothing else. There is nothing else around there that actually unites core human values for anybody to connect to. And so if I look at this group here, where I see 12 participants, but in fact we are 9%, but there are 8 participants, I think, because everybody is doubled now. I'm drunk, I think. I see everybody twice. Stacy, you haven't been drinking, I think, but everybody else has. And Barry is the one. But everybody else is not kind of doubled here. Yeah, if I look at each in the eyes, and I think, well, there's a possibility that at an individual level, if you are independent enough, that you can actually play that role of connector as somebody who actually brings those groups together. The only thing you have to do is look at what are the priorities in your region. If in Mexico the priority is poverty, then it is quite reasonable that that Jaime is going to work on that particular aspect of sustainable livelihood, with everybody involved in eliminating this poverty. If air quality in this region is a problem, then we can link on that. And probably other regions where food is an issue or water is an issue or whatever. I don't know what the issue would be in Bali, safety because of the volcano, maybe, but people have been living there for hundreds of years. Jaime, tell me.
Yes, if I may add something, Jean-Paul, I think that for everyone, independently of where do we live, I think that the priority, in my opinion, should be to contribute as much as possible to reduce global warming, and that's it. I mean, that would be my main goal, because that challenge could become so difficult to confront in some generations that it really could mean the extinction of our humankind in this planet. And I'm sure that I'm not exaggerating. It may sound. I'm sure that all of you are aware of this, and you have, and perhaps you agree. So I would put that as the main priority, and for that, the different dimensions of sustainability are very important as well. Of course, the social sustainability, the economic sustainability, but the environmental sustainability, for me, in my opinion, that's our highest challenge for everyone, everywhere in this world.
Here's a catch-22. We have gone through that over here. We actually we have become aware of a solution to tap into the high temperatures below our feet. It's how's it called? Ultra deep geothermal energy going into the 270 degrees Celsius layers. We have done here attempts in the Netherlands to move that forward. What was in the way? Bureaucracy, yeah? So as long as the bureaucracy is there, and that's not just here in this country, but in many other countries, a simple solution to fix the energy, it's below our feet, doesn't get through the system. It's used today with temperatures, I don't know, 60, 70 degrees. But if you really want 24-hour energy generation, 365 days a year, well, it's below our feet. I've checked with a geologist. He's saying the technology is there today. What's missing is the pilot.
Yeah,
pilot to show it works.
Sure. Eugen, yeah, we've heard the statement, and I asked you for maybe, but you have some impossibility to share some documentation with us on that because of. But there again, it would be interesting to learn a little bit more about it. I can imagine it. Mahendra wants to say something, and then Heiner.
You know, there are two sides to the climate problem. One is the source of where it's coming from, and you treat the symptoms. Now, the symptoms are what we do with energy and this, and those are going to be minute because with the population rising, and remember, 80% of the world has not contributed anything to climate change so far in terms of cumulative emissions. So we need to attack both. And the source is easier to attack because the whole problem comes from human lifestyles, materialism, greed, power, overconsumption, irresponsible treatment of nature, and human beings have to change. And I am amazed that I've been in so many meetings for 30 years in IPCC, and nobody wants to talk about human lifestyles. And yet it's 30% of the world, 30% that includes Holland. That's why I increased from 20 to 30. 30% is responsible for 70% of climate change. And if we think China is now the biggest producer, please remember that China has 1.3 billion people compared to 350 million people in the United States or North America. So this is the dilemma we have, and 80%, 70% of the world out there wants to adopt modern lifestyles of overconsumption and everything else that goes with it. So citizen movement, how can we mobilize the citizens of this world? it's difficult because even when children are marching, their parents are not responding. Can you imagine your 8-year-old daughter goes marching with climate change and comes home crying, and you have nothing to say except to cuddle her, but you take no action?
True. Heiner.
Yes, Mahendra, this is also since more than 30 years my thing. We tried recently with Jörg to look into where all these potentially positive ideas, so it's not just wind and wave energy and solar and geothermal, it is how we don't get the stakeholders involved, but some board experts or whatever, and don't go to the deep drivers. The problem is that we don't go to these neglected points because it's like hot, it's like fire. But what I can offer to you, we have done around negative body image. That's been a European Grundtvig project to go into what's happening in society with a new media where the young people kill themselves or they do group bang gangs or whatever horrible you can imagine. Or we did it with some schools on dropout rates in school, because when you drop out of school, the pupils will not tell you why their father is drunken or how the situation, it's impossible. It's all tabooed. But when we did this dialogues with traditional people from 6 regions, not just China, and India, and Maori, then when the stakeholders look into the influences and the root causes and the deep drivers, then somehow such issues which are full of taboos are becoming public. I have done a presentation about this 6 years ago in Norway. Maybe if you give me 10 minutes one day, we can look what the Club of Rome in the 60s wanted, like problematique, predicament of mankind, before all these founders were thrown out of the club because they were just trying to make models. Models without values, no go.
Eugen wants to say something.
Yeah, I want to respond to Mahendra's contribution about, how can we get the mindset changed of people, well, buying everything and that makes no sense and flying around the world all the time and polluting things. One of the things I came across is a very effective technique. Well, first of all, to me, anything we do needs to be executable. If it isn't executable, I don't spend any time on it. But there's a way I've learned to get people on board. That's when we integrated people from foreign companies, complete departments in the company I work for. We asked a couple of questions, just a few questions that I asked again and again that got the people on board very quick. Now, what we could do here is a question I've in my mind for quite some time. We could ask the question and try to get the message out that others ask that again. That could be done via Fridays for Future, for example. The question we could use is, what is your contribution? What are your 2 or 3 contributions to solve climate change? Yeah. And when the children asked their parents, when journalists asked people wasting money running this or driving this polluting big cars and so forth, then it should be possible, based on what we have experienced in the field, to get people on board. And it gets harder and harder for them to not respond to this question. All we have to do is to get this above the tipping point, where people start asking these questions publicly and so forth, and people have no other chance than to tell what they do. The trick here is to give them the freedom to make the choice for themselves. If you tell you need to stop with that, or you need to stop with something, well, that creates resistance. But if they have a choice, it's differently. all they have to do is to tell what they do.
Right. I would like to thank you, Eugen. I would like to react to Hyman's message of urgency about the climate change. The thing that I tried to do about 11 or 15 years ago or something was try to convince people about certain things that need to be done. But I could not, I started preaching about all kinds of things and told them all the dangers and everything, and nobody was paying really attention. I needed something that people could actually take responsibility for themselves. And that was very much related to them. If I talk to them about climate change, it is like, whoa, they're big, you know, it's like, wow. If I talk to them about their own health, then suddenly we start talking about air quality, we talk about food, about healthy food, we talk about the relationship with nature, we talk about how the children go to school, how we educate them about what nature is. We are looking at a thing that as a result has a climate change in a positive sense. Because if I manage to get a healthy city where the cars are totally eliminated out of the city, we go with different type of mobility, then this city is not contributing anymore to the global health problem. If every city does that, we have one part of the problem solved. And then obviously we have to go to the energy issue, like Eugen is saying, that we have to go to different type of energies, because obviously, but we have to reduce the usage of energy too, or transform the use of energy by looking at things. But if I look at it from a healthy point of view, then I get more people involved and much faster than when I just talk about climate change. Here in Eindhoven, the climate project that the government has been designing all the time, this city councillor himself says, it has failed every time. It has failed. Why? Because everybody is talking about different priorities. But when we talk about health, we're actually managing to transform the city and grow slowly towards a car-free city. It is the type of mentality where the people actually connect themselves to their own responsibility and their own different comfort zones. And if we look at the institutions, exactly the same. If we together say we have a manifest where we say no tolerance to pollution, pollution is one of the biggest contributions to climate change. And so no pollution. But how do we deal with that? Okay, we give it 10 years to see and we go practice and to not pollute, but still keep our comfort zone. But somehow we have to work on our wellness. But can we not be having wellness with all the stupid goods that we are forced to produce now just out of nothing to keep the shops full, which is just a whole bunch of unnecessary stuff? No, we can be very well without all that kind of stuff, extremely well, eventually. The thing people have to learn, you have to unlearn something and learn something, like Mahendra is saying. But they do that if we are talking about a health perspective. And if we get the institutions along, then suddenly we start eliminating parts. And that's the way I approach it anyway. Yes, Mahendra.
Do you think the fundamental driver of everything is education? Because education, we are on the wrong track of education. We want to push our children into extreme competition to get a degree, and then hopefully they get a job. I want to give you an example of what happens in Bali. When a gardener, his son finishes school, and if he gets a gardener's job, the father says, stop, 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 no more. In our case, we push the children to be better than us. And people say, well, that's how development comes. That's what progress is. But when your son commits suicide, damn it, you're not going to say that anymore. So the education system, all the people who are sitting in this webinar here in front of me, if your partner or your wife was to say, go cook me a meal, you can all do it. How you learned it? In adulthood, maybe in college when you're alone, you're pushed to do it. This education is not given to children, even up to the age of 12, 14. So the education system needs to be reformed, because that's where starts materialism and everything, this competition and buying a better car and more shirts than you need. All these things originate from education. My own son, until the age of 12, only wanted designer clothes and nothing else. Doesn't matter what it cost. And at the age of, I think it was 12 or 14, he said, no more. And now he buys totally the opposite. And he's a philosopher, he's an economist, he's a lawyer, and he's a linguist. So the education system, we need to start thinking fundamentally, how do you, and you know, the onus we can say is on the, but not enough. Men have to play an equal role. We leave the mothers to nourish and nurture the children, but we have to be involved in bringing the other dimension of education.
Well, that we agree there, Mahendra, obviously. And what
How can we reform? Because we are on the same track.
But the best education is the good example. And I think also at a home level, if you give you good example, like you yourself are doing, Mahendra, while you are working at the United Nations, you may have had a particular impact on your son or your family and that. But now with the health resort and with the Zen resort, I think you have a totally different impact on them. And you're showing a totally different type of commitment to life yourself by taking the responsibility to yourself. And that radiates now to the hundreds of families that somehow interact with you. The same happens with me. Just because I take responsibility, everybody I engage with are now asking me, how can they involve me, for instance, in creating healthy livelihoods, how they can work together with me on creating healthy type of building projects and that, which are, but they cannot be done by the project owners themselves. They have to be done in co-creation and that kind of stuff. Everybody is doing that, but it's because I took the example, and then in the example, everybody is learning and that's education. But it's not upfront telling the people what to do, because if they told me upfront 30 years ago that I was going to be doing what I do today, I would have called them crazy. But this is what happened. And I think I'm much more in a learning environment with my surroundings, including myself, by doing what I do. So that is what I try to extend also to us. I don't think anybody in a poverty environment in the area of Jaime is going to worry about a tree if they really need to heat up the something for their family and they don't have money for to pay anything else. They just go for the tree and cut it down. So we do have to look at a sustainable development from a very personal relationship point of view on how that we can actually support each other, creating sufficient wellness and support so that we avoid that somebody takes the initiative to cut down that tree.
But you make a simple solution to that. You cut the tree, you must plant 2 little trees because you need the energy today to cook or whatever. So when you cut a tree, the rule of society is you must plant 2 trees.
Okay.
If I, well, at some point, if I could have just about 5 minutes to show you a figure, what I mentioned about this adaptation of sustainable livelihoods. Maybe not now, maybe later, but I'll have to share it with my laptop, if I may. That's why I introduced my second entry to the meeting. Hello, 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 hello. Your microphone is off, Paul.
Okay, so I have to make you co-host, right?
Just for 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's not a problem. The only thing is, I have now one Jaime here, so I can. I make you co-host. Okay.
The one that says Jaime, just Jaime.
Yeah. Are you seeing it?
This host disabled participating screen sharing. Okay. No, I can't share.
You can't see it yet? I can make you.
I can't share the.
Oh, wait, now
the
you can
screen.
maybe.
Ah, yeah, now I can. Okay.
I
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. No. Can you see? No, no. No, maybe it's not working. Maybe I'll have to. Oh, but I need to talk from here. Well, no, I think it's not.
Are you using share screen?
Oh. I'm joining with. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to go out from this mobile meeting, and I'll just keep in my laptop just to be able to share. All right. Okay. So now, can you share? Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Oh man, what can I?
Disconnect.
It's here. It's here. Yeah, I think it's there. Can you see it? Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
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 Okay. Just very briefly. It is an adaptation of the sustainable livelihoods of the UK Department for International Development, DFID. And originally, I did this to design anti-poverty strategies.
There's a lot of noise on the line somewhere. Emma, are you still there? We have is screen sharing, but okay. Am I doing this, or is Climat doing this? No.
He has to unmute itself. And the
Can
other
you hear me now?
thing he has to mute.
I think I have to keep my mobile here.
Oh, you have to use your mobile again. Okay.
But well, very
You can't
fast.
unmute on your laptop.
My laptop, yes. Let me try to.
Where's all the noise coming from?
He's fixing it.
Okay.
When you
Yeah.
mute
Can you hear me now?
your phone.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear? No. Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think that's the only way to manage this. So very briefly, I think this type of framework, in my opinion, can be helpful to design strategies to look for, as someone mentioned, entry points. Where can we entry the different actions that we are considering as options for influencing different things. So very briefly, it starts just with an assessment. In this case, for the diagnosis of well-being, but the starting point really comes to the analysis of the problem that we are trying to analyze. In my case, it was poverty. So I started to analyze the livelihood outcomes, the well-being dimensions, in terms of the different capitals that people have, like physical capital, natural capital, social capital, financial capital, human capital, and political capital. And from that, as the Sustainable Livelihoods Framework says, there are different factors that influence these assets of people, or these dimensions of well-being. We have the livelihood strategies, we have the vulnerability context, we have processes and structures. For example, in the vulnerability context, we have shocks, we have seasonalities, we have trends that could be applied to different things like migration, like in this way, for example, climate change, whatever we have. In processes and cultures and structures, we have institutions We have governments, we have the private sectors, we have laws, we have culture, we have traditions, we have everything on this in this box. And in livelihood strategies, we have how do people cope, how do people react, or how do people decide to produce or to intervene in several activities. And at the end, this interdependence of these factors give us at the end, it gives us the like the where are they? A result. At the end, we can design a strategy to find entry points. These entry points could be at the level of processes and structures. It could be at the level of how to influence the vulnerability context, how to increase the capitals of people, how to influence livelihood strategies, and we end up in the livelihood outcomes at the end, in the same place where we started, but in a different level, hopefully, in terms of outcomes, the outcomes that we are trying to have as goals or whatever we have. And we have to monitor this. We have to evaluate the effects of our interventions in a permanent process to see if the things that we are doing are really causing an impact, a positive impact. Otherwise, we have to rethink where we are failing. So it's an iterative process. It never stops. So we have to find out if we can improve the strategies that we are using to change things within the entry points that we have decided to focus. So it's just a way. Maybe it's not very. It has a lot of arrows and these kind of things. But what I wanted to share is that maybe having like a type of model similar in this type of models as the one that you shared. I don't know if it's there. It can help us to design strategies, to design maybe actions, particular actions to be focused on different actors of governance, as I said. Maybe at some point governments, maybe at some point people at the private sector, maybe a strategy for influencing civil society, and these kind of things. It's just a model, but I want just to briefly share it with you, and that's it.
I made the lower part is all logical, processes, interlinkages is all logical. The problem I have is the top part of how do you poverty and how do you define well-being? Because if you look at the biggest slum in the world, which is in Mumbai, where if you go there, you say, how such terrible poverty. Nobody wants to leave that slum and all the people are happy. And amazingly, COVID-19 didn't kill the millions we expected that to kill in the slums. So defining well-being and poverty, one has to be careful of the notion that well-being is not having an apartment in New York City on the 52nd floor and all the money you have, you are totally unhappy when you get to your room. So well-being and poverty and health, all of this, you need to define very carefully. And then the rest of it makes logical sense to identify the role of civil society and everybody else.
I do agree. In fact, in my research, I insist on the necessity to use an integral concept of well-being, not just the tangible aspect that could be related to food or even health and these kind of things, shelter, but also the subjective part, happiness. It's very important to have both sides. So well-being is composed of both of them. It's not just the tangible thing or the objective things that constitute well-being, but also the subjective ones. And yes, I do agree. And just a brief example, when I was studying my master's in poverty reduction and development management in UK, I went to Bangladesh to do field work. In fact, this model started within this research in Bangladesh of microcredits. And when I came back to, whilst I was in Bangladesh, people in Bangladesh asked me, hey, how do you see the differences between Bangladesh and United Kingdom? How can you tell us? And I told them, within this month that I have been here in Bangladesh, I could tell you that, yes, maybe people in UK have more material things, like many in other parts of the world. But to be honest, I haven't seen so many people laughing in UK as I have seen them here in Bangladesh. I see people here in a way happier, maybe without a lot of material things, but much more in contact with nature, much more in contact with other people, because as you know, in Bangladesh, you see people everywhere. So it's difficult to feel alone in Bangladesh and in many other parts. But in UK, there are a lot of lonely people. There are a lot of people that are not socially connected with others. And yes, you see people really sad. Even the climate, the weather, I think it exerts an influence. Myself, I suffered with the British weather during the winters. I had to take pills and everything. But people in Bangladesh seem very, very happy in many senses. It's not just the material things. But at the end, we cannot put that in an extreme to say we just could be happy and forget about eating, forget about having medicines or medical attention, these kind of things. Forget about having a secure shelter to protect from many things. So it's a mixture. It's a balance. But yes, I do agree. It's a much more integral concept, that of well-being.
Well, there's another thing that what I would like to say is if we concentrate on, for instance, poverty, you yourself said people are in loneliness, they lack the social connection. Why don't we focus on social connection instead of loneliness? Why don't we focus on looking at what is causing the loneliness rather than at what's causing the poverty? The poverty I mentioned before, that poverty is not the lack of money, and that could be in certain Western areas, could be the way of thinking, the mindset that if we provide them enough money, that we provide them with happiness. But this is probably not the case. We provide them with much more happiness and much more health if we give them give people space to become self-sufficient and to become as self-sufficient and engage in self-sufficiency together with their own neighborhood. So the chance to be self-sufficient is probably a bigger requirement to eradicate poverty than just focusing on poverty. So not looking at the remedial part of looking at the symptoms, but looking at what the essential of human beings is to be socially engaged in the co-creation of our core human values. That gives the people some sensitivity to what the reason of life is. And we have eradicated, we've forgotten about that for the last few hundred years because we've been focusing too much on material productivity and other kind of stuff. Can you take this picture away, because then we can see everything?
Sure. Sure. Is that, yes.
You're back.
Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Just a brief thing. Coming back to the concept of happiness and things that you mentioned. Now that we have perhaps lost the sense of being here or being human beings, I like very much this. I'm pretty sure you've heard about this idea of Aristotle about the main goal of human beings is to be happy, to have happiness. And there is a very, very interesting social research in the University of Harvard that has taken place for more than 75 years, I think. It's the research that has taken much more time than any other that I've heard, at least. And it's about happiness. And just to jump into the conclusions, they found out that the main source of happiness in people, it's not the material things, it is much more related to their social connections, to not social connections, but to their contact with other people. it can be family, it can be friends, these kind of things, but that's the main source of happiness that they have found in more than 70 years of researching about happiness. So, and yes, this modern world with a lot of things that it's a lot of stress on people, maybe tends to isolate us, even though that we have much more communication tools than ever. But at the end, maybe a lot of people are feel lonely.
Paul, this is also for you. We talked about this, I think, 1 week or 2 weeks ago. If you take Eindhoven and you identify where the lonely people are, normally they'll be elderly or others under stress or mentally. The solution is very simple. Mobilize the young people in the weekend to go and talk to them. You don't need any investment in that. And over time, you will find it works. It doesn't need anything. We talked about it, I think 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago.
Your microphone, Japol. Your microphone.
Annie, you wanted to share something with us, right?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, beautiful.
No, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. And I'm interested in the knowledge and ideas from the other people here, how we can create a better world together, stopping the money greed economy and stopping pollution from Mother Earth, the waters and the air, and cutting down the trees in the rainforest. We can learn from the indigenous people. They are protecting and respecting Mother Earth, the forest, the waters, and the environment, without pollution or waste. They are connected with all what is. Permaculture is a solution too, so people can grow their own healthy veggies and food and to be self-sufficient on a sustainable way, even in cities, on the rooftops, on the balconies, and indoors. Even in the deserts, they are growing their own veggies now. There are many projects, and they can make gardens in harmony with Mother Earth and sharing with each other. People can learn to build their solar ovens so they can preparing their meal without cutting trees. More people aware that everything is connected. So their actions should be earth care, plant care, animal care, and fair share. So that's why I love and embrace the Sustainocracy model and projects from Jean-Paul. It's a great example, and it has these principles too, and followers on a national and global scale. Living a happy, healthy life in harmony with Mother Earth and each other. I wish and hope that more people get conscious that we are all under a divine creation. We have the divinity, love, and light already in us. And if we are connected with that and with our hearts and souls, then we can connect easily with Mother Earth and with each other and all what is. If we divine sparkle, then we can say, you are me, I am you. Then we are whole and one. So we can dream together and create and co-create and heal Mother Earth and living a happy, healthy life in harmony with each other. Then we can make a better world together for our children and the future generations. Love, blessings, light for everyone, for Mother Earth, for the plant and animal kingdom, for the universe, and all what is. Namaste.
Well, that's a beautiful statement, Henny. Where does it come from? Did you write it down yourself?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excuse me?
Where did you get it from? Is it produced by yourself?
Yeah, by myself.
All right. Okay. Well, beautiful. Yeah. This is I think that is the type of energy that Mahendra is referring to, the female energy of showing us what is important really to the things, like we do with our children, what we do with just about everything that we love and care, and that we connect with that. We've disconnected so much that your statement is really impressive to say, well, look, come on, guys, what are we really doing this for? So
That the divinity is already in us,
yeah.
and the love and the light.
Mm-hmm. All right.
It's already there.
And Jean-Paul, you are chairing this session, so how come we men are in a majority?
How about, I'm sorry, say again?
How you are chairing this session, you are the organizer, you are a wonderful guy, but how come you have a minority of ladies on this panel?
That's a very good one. Well, it's a minority because every gentleman has duplicated his profile. So if I count the ladies, there's one, we have 3 ladies and 6 men.
Wait, push him a little.
Yeah, no. Okay, challenge to everybody. We want more women on this forum. So everybody next week, bring in a woman.
But Jean-Paul, on a serious note, if you want to save human divisiveness in our world, which is racism and war and conflict and religion, all these things, and if you want to heal nature, the person who can do it is women. You can talk about as much female energy as you have, but the fact remains that the women are endowed with this and the women don't know that they have it. That's a problem. So women accept when men say we want to empower you to participate in everything. No, they need to be inspired by themselves because the asset they have is what men need to heal the world of people and the world of nature. And we don't pay attention. We pay lip service to it.
Well, this is not the first time that Mahendra is doing this very passionate call for women. What do the women themselves say about this? May I have Stacy?
Yes. I'm not sure that the women don't know that they have it. What I think is that many women have been shown over and over that if they try to use it, there's going to be consequences.
Stacey, you nurture your children. Women nurture their children with knowledge. Men are not there. It's a woman that nurtures the next generation. And that next generation are the decision makers of tomorrow. Men don't realize this. So you may say women don't know this. Women don't use it. That's a problem.
I disagree though. On a small scale, I mean, I can only speak for myself and I can speak to my experience here. I'm very quiet here because I'm very uncomfortable. I don't feel confident to speak up. I mean, truthfully, a lot of what you're talking about is over my head. My experience and my understanding is really for what happens in the United States. So there might be little bits and pieces that I want to interject, but I don't. I think that in smaller circumstances, I can be very powerful and I will attempt to do that. But in a bigger playground, there's too many consequences. And yeah, I mean, I'm coming from a very simple place and I'm just telling you as I see it. Now, when I am with other women, I'm a whole different personality.
All right. Well, we do have other women here. We have Henny. What do you think about this? What Mahendra is saying and what Stacey has just added to it. Henny, are you still there?
Yes, yes.
Okay. How do you see this feminine role in things, to take more active role in all the changes that we are facing?
Yes, I think it's necessary too, and it brings more into everything, but it has to be more equal, like 50% male and female. It's like yin and yang. It's connected with each other, and the male have also the female things in themselves, and the females the male things. So we have to equilibration to bring balance in ourselves and with each other.
All right, bringing balance and equality. That is what you are saying. What Stacey is saying. Well, on a smaller scale, we can be very active. If I look at the way I've been dealing with the City of Tomorrow, I had, for instance, air quality measurements and that involving 21 municipalities. The majority, about 90%, was men and 10% women. If I looked at social cohesion and social integration, which is another community that I'm running, then I'm just about a single man. It's everything is women. It is like very, very much interconnected with women. I'm surrounded with hundreds of women, which is incredible. But so it's the type of thing. If we talk about climate change, I don't think women feel too much motivated or triggered or something. But if we talk about care, if we talk about love, about happiness, if we talk about social interconnection, if we talk about equality, that kind of stuff, and then I think women are very much more likely to get involved. Am I right, Stacey?
No,
Yeah, for me, you put your finger on it earlier. Earlier, you said something about what if we were to look at the question of loneliness? And that was something that I had been thinking throughout the whole call, because I've done that before, where I've said to myself, what would a city look like if the problem we sought to eradicate was loneliness? And funny enough, all the other pieces fell into place where it did address climate conditions and poverty and all those things. But I think that a lot of the things that reflect well-being from that human point of view tend to be undervalued in our society. So when Mahendra said about well-being, is that, having an apartment on the 52nd floor or being happy, the thing is, if you look at the measure of happiness and you make that well-being, automatically brought into that is, can you sustain yourself? As opposed to, if you look from the other direction, it might have nothing to do with how happy you are. And I think that the things that have to do with internal well-being are things that women are better able at dealing with, but it sort of takes a back seat.
Can I say something about this? Barry mentioned regarding well-being, he mentioned material well-being, and there's also emotional well-being and spiritual well-being. So what you are talking about, Jean-Paul, with AiREAS, that the male were all male. It's the reality of things, and this is the reality of life. What Stacey mentioned, it's the social part of the human being, and the institutions. In Holland, there are a lot of women now in the institutions, but in early days, it were all men, and they are talking about the reality of things, having things, and kind of stuff, and that's another reality than the being and the social part of life. I think that this is a very important thing, why there is a world where the men are in power. I mentioned in the chat, we men can show more of our feminine side too. More live yourself from out of your feelings instead of your head and mind.
Wait, Mahendra, because Barry has been putting his hand up for a long time, and now he even put up something on the screen, I think. Barry, are you still there?
Yeah, sure, I'm here. I don't know if in speaker view you can see that slide. I don't think it comes up.
Multiple interlinked economies.
Yeah, I don't know how. Does that come up in speaker view for you guys?
Not for me. I see Mahendra on a huge
Now,
scale.
why is Mahendra in speaker view and not me because I'm speaking?
Yeah, that's strange. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Mahendra, what are you doing?
Wait, hang on. Speaker view, I have Mahendra in speaker view, yeah, indeed, and not you. Let me see if
Well, I
can-
mean, I could share the screen if that's easier. I was thinking I could just do it by putting it in lieu of my picture, and you'd be able to see it if I was talking, but I guess that doesn't work.
shall I make you co-host then?
Okay, just only take a second.
And how did you raise the hand and lower the hand? I see lower hand and raise hand, because that is,
It's in the participants little sidebar thing.
all right, because that is nice for somebody who wants to speak, to
Now
raise
do
the
you-
hand.
Now, do you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I think I might need to move this off the way. So Jaime was talking initially about a well-being, and the first thing that people tend to think about is the material economy, because that's the easiest thing to measure. It's visible, and you can go out and you can buy groceries or whatever. But there's lots of other economies besides the material economy, and the other kind of the far end of these different economies is the emotional or spiritual economy, which is what I had written about in the little chat window. And there's how many? Something like 8 distinct economies that you can attend to. So economists tend to measure this one because you get a lot of data and you can take a lot of numbers. And on the internet, you can talk about bits and hits in the information and attention economy. In the entertainment industry, you got dramas and entertainment, and this draws attention. In the education world, I tend to focus on the emotions and learning economy, but then you also have the spiritual economy, which I kind of call grits. And these economies do not operate independently. Any traffic in one of these economies will induce traffic in its neighboring economies. And so you can get traffic kind of bouncing on down the line like a slinky. And so you have to treat these as a collection of interlinked economies. Traffic in any one, flows and fluctuations in one will induce fluctuations and flows in the neighboring ones. And this is the model that I like to use to think about how do all of these different economies, from the most discrete, measurable economies to the most abstract, elusive ones, operate. And so when Stacy was talking about, women are sort of paying attention to emotions and spirituality and things like that, it may be a cliche to say that men operate up here and women operate down here. I don't think that's quite true, but because everybody operates across all of them. But that's just one way to think about, kind of how all this works.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Barry, because maybe we can also reflect a little bit about the definition of economy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's one of the models that's in that long paper that talks about all these huge collection of models.
No, but what I would like to say is that economy is very often nowadays referred to as the financial growth model, which is not at all economy. So maybe Heine has a definition for us.
No, I want to introduce another term. When we were with the Council of Churches in Geneva, the Orthodox priest told us as a traditional old Greek, there is economy, ecology, ecumene, and a fourth term they use is ecodomy. Domos is a number, is a structuring, and the keeping of the house is not naming, but looking over generation for the whole. And I think through embodiment, that is what women learned, not just multitasking, that's silly, that's something out of the computer world, but caring on a different broad bandwidth for many things at the same time. Like we focus on one thing, but we see everything up and down, otherwise humans wouldn't have survived. I wanted to speak up because I was all day today and I will tomorrow in a session of about 100 participants, and only 5% were women. No, were men. So 95% were women. And it is about the social, cultural peace, all the broader issues, because we assemble under Anna Lindh. She was a foreign minister of Sweden who was murdered because she cared beyond her own scope and maybe even did a lot of risks and compromises. But it is about how we embody, how we share. And I'm fully with Stacy. We tried now since 6 years or whatever to make this global challenges collaboration. It is most of the time men. It is most of the time Atlantic, not Pacific. And we are very, very blinded. And all these groups stay together, but also many separated, because sometimes women's cycles are more efficient. And we had the Earth Stewards, where they made in the Mid-East peace dialogues, and they could be only made possible when the women and the men separate, because they have a totally different culture. And the American Indians and other traditions have the chieftains in the center, but the old women around give the steering and serve the tea, because you have to find a conclusion before you go to the loo. So there's much wisdom in how to look for terra preta, not just permaculture, how to look into health, medicine, hygiene, all these issues connected, but we in our structures of academia and scientific academic enterprises don't find the interlinkages. This is what I meant, and I will report really next time what our invited practices of this 95% women have been today and tomorrow.
Lovely. Oh, look forward to that, Hannah. Somebody has not opened her mouth yet, and there's a woman too here. I don't know if she's can hear us, and if you're there, Ukpeme, what?
Greetings, everyone.
All right.
Okay. I'll open my mouth now. Thank you. So I just want to support all our comments. They're very, very helpful and insightful. I just want to note that two things. Firstly, is that we have a lot of focal points in our collective goals as development workers. Some of us are focusing on peace, some of us on climate, some of us on health and other areas, but we have a destination. And so if like, I know Dr. Shab talked about education as a linkage to all these areas. So if we can find that common ground that can link us up in all the work that we do, that will help us to achieve, our common goal. But importantly, because of the nature of our diversity, we have different areas that we are advocating. So let's continue to forge our focal areas and then look for that common linkage that we can use as a platform to achieve all that we need. And then on the men and women energies, I know that women have a special, they have this special ambience to the things that they do, and men too. So we have to, have that, not having, looking at women as, I know we are also special and men too are special, but let us look at ourselves as the energy that we need, the equal energy that we need to achieve all that we need. So a 50-50 interconnectedness between the men and the women will all go well for us. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think Mahendra has put on his female side again. Here's Sarah.
Since EQoL is here, I want to take exception with what you said about air pollution, that 80% of the people were men and the women were not there. When children get asthma and air pollution effects, it's a woman who will have to deal with it, not the man. So women should be mobilized for air pollution with the right knowledge that it's in their interest to be there. So it's, I think we are separating this. Let's not compartmentalize men and women. They need to be equal partners. But in the reality of the world today, they are unequal partners. And it's time they were inspired to come on the table, and those people should welcome and not accept that for air pollution this, and then Heiner says for peace, women are more important. And yet all the peace negotiators in this world are men. You look at the United Nations, all the peace negotiators have either from Norway or Stockholm or wherever, Scandinavia. So I think we need to draw a line and please don't belittle the whole thing by saying men have female energy. Men have minority female energy and women have minority male energy. And you equalize by having both on the table.
That's right. Let's have them both at the table.
I quit.
Yes. All right. Barry, you want to say something?
Oh, no, I was just fixing my
Oh, you were fixing something. All right.
Is my hand still up? I thought I took it down.
No. I saw you with the microphone open and I thought, okay, fair, I'll give you the word. Anybody else want to react on to this? Well, the equality of women and men, obviously, but in practical circumstances, we seem to attract more women or men. It's not because we exclude all men or women. It is simply that they somehow seem to be more attracted to certain things. As an example, we did a scientific research about asthma and children between 7 and 11 years. And we tried to address the people in Eindhoven, and there are thousands of children who are actually affected by this. And we wanted to see how much the air pollution was doing to them and get them to actually react when they had more or less respiration problems. Do you know how many people, after many type of interventions, communication and everything, how many of these children we got to participate through their mothers? 7 out of the thousands. It was very much like the women said, well, we solved this by ourselves. And that was the type of attitude. So it is kind of very complex. I recognize what you say, Mahendra. There's a lot of idealism in there, but the practical reality sometimes gives us these type of situations too. I do realize it. And I do like to work with hundreds of women, and I do see that they get activated by different type of impulses than men very often.
Yeah, but Jean-Paul, the problem is not with the women didn't come. There was something wrong with the communication that didn't convince them that they have to come. It's in their own interest.
Obviously.
Yeah, that's where we go back to Eugen's point about communication, that must be effective. If it's not effective, stop doing it.
All right. Now let's see how we can get some communication effective so that we
What I ask for finally is I need the permission of the 3 ladies who are on this thing. It's 1 o'clock at night here in Bali, and I think I ought to take a break now.
He's a gentleman right now. Men, we don't have anything to say about this, but ladies, wish him good night.
Yeah, no,
we wish him a restful night.
I'm going to leave you all.
He's warmly excused.
What can I say? Sleep well.
Thank you.
All right.
I just
All
want
right.
to reinforce, if I could, that last point about finding the communication channel that connects with another person. Now, it may be especially challenging if it's male-female disconnect, but it doesn't have to be gender-based. You can have communication disconnects between any two people of, even siblings. So I think we need to really spend more time on identifying which channels are connecting and in balance and which channels are out of balance or disconnected, and find a way to adopt the channel that's balanced and working in two ways. It may not be spoken word. It may not be written word. It may be music or gestures or some other channel of communication besides the ones that the talking head model we have.
True. Stacey.
And to add to that, maybe spending a little bit more time on looking at the motivations. You talked about smoking. There are people that have a heart attack, they're dying of cancer, but they're going to keep lighting up their cigarettes. And that's because their motivation to light up the cigarette is more important. So I think it's important to look at what are people's motivation for participating.
Very good point. Anybody
I
else?
I feel the motivation to leave you all this evening. And
Yeah, it's your
I have
bedtime
some
too.
other things also. Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, Terry.
Children's bedtime.
Thanks again for participating.
Okay. Thank you all. I wish you a pleasant evening.
Okay.
And till next time. Bye-bye.
Okay. So concrete, we do need to look at communication. We also look at motivation indeed. And we've been talking about that. Are we firefighting? Are we pulling people into positiveness? Are we looking at negative sides? All these kind of energies are relevant in communication. I've noticed that very much also in my own.
You muted yourself.
That's strange because I didn't even touch the screen. That's something weird is happening here because anyway. But I've noticed that in my own activities that a positive vibe of communication is something that is attracting very much more than going firefighting the negative stuff and everything, because that gets people into stuff. Co-creation is also an attractive type of thing, like multidisciplinary co-creation, getting people of diversity of background together, because that arises the curiosity of people, not everybody talking the same language, but people bringing in different topics. That also is something, an environment where people feel themselves also recognized and feel themselves authentic, because they do have a contribution which is not competing with others. These kind of instruments, they are very important to recognize. But then we do have to make steps forward in our sustainable development issues. And I focus on things that people individually can take responsibility for, and we can do that collectively too. And that seems to work here, but maybe in different cultures it doesn't work the same way. That is something we need to experiment. That's why I like very much about the American participation here, or the German participation, or the Mexican participation, so we can see if there are going to be differences and we can learn from each other. Okay, so what else can we do? Is this sufficient for today? Is there anything that we can share still with each other? Communication is important. The education is important, but from my point of view, it is more the education by participation, because then people can become aware of the stuff, their own abilities, but also the ability of others and the chances that we have. So it's not just preaching about education and telling people what to do, but inviting them to participate. And then the role of yourself as an initiator of processes, the good example and a positive invitation to take up responsibility yourself for your neighborhood or wherever you are. That is something which is much more effective than trying to tell government or anybody else to do so. I was a single citizen here, and I just put up my finger and I said, I want to live in a healthy city. And suddenly I find myself surrounded with just about everybody. But that must be possible in your areas too. Maybe in the macho culture of Mexico, it'll be more difficult, but I don't know. Yes, a finger of Barry.
You know, it's interesting because I come from the education culture, and we have a sort of a concept of what is the model, conventional model for education. And then there's the entertainment culture, and everybody is quite familiar with the entertainment medium. And in between, there's something called edutainment. And edutainment is a tricky thing because typically people are good in their discipline of education or they're good in their discipline of entertainment, but it's hard to find a way to be entertaining and educational at the same time. That's a challenge. And I think that a group like this would really benefit from spending some time thinking about how can we move a little bit out of the pure education model and over to the entertainment side and find this medium of edutainment. So we get more people are paying attention, but also gaining some insight and some learning in the process. So it's not tedious and dull and boring, classroom education, talking heads. And it's not just, meaningless entertainment, silly stuff, but something that's a nice blend.
Yeah,
Can we do that?
Yeah, Eugen.
Actually, I've gone through an experience where they did something like that. And it was, I was really surprised. They actually got 1,000 civil servants from The Hague into one theater. Decision makers, politicians were not allowed to come. And they had a really fantastic evening where, well, education and theater culture was mixed, and there was an enormous amount of energy. Can tell you, and I know the person who did that. So if somebody needs her, I might be able to connect.
It's interesting because the kickoff of the City of Tomorrow, when I had about 55 people in the audience, it was people gathered together to listen to my philosophy of what I wanted to set up. And it was in 2009. I had 2 opera singers in the room. And we had agreed that on particular words that I would say, they would raise a finger and they would start the music. And then they stood up. There were 2 of them, a man and a woman. And the man or the woman would stand up and start the singing. And that would surprise the audience so much. And then suddenly the woman stood up and she was sitting somewhere else in the room. And then they connected together and they came to me, to the podium. And then we were kind of 3 people standing there. They were just, through the singing and the choice of the music, they were just reconfirming everything that I was saying. That had such a major impact. It was absolutely beautiful. And we repeated this kind of process quite often. Later, they became so famous that they were on television. They won the Holland Got Talent. They became 3rd or something. So, and we disconnected a little bit, and it was a pity. But it is such a beautiful way to actually bring things across by connecting the artistry. It's really beautiful. So yeah, it is one of my things that I like to do. Hopefully we can get that orchestrated here too. I don't know how you do these kind of things on Zoom. It's something we can experiment with. Anybody can sing here?
Oh, yes.
Barry. Oh, yes, I know you.
I don't care.
He did once in the Spanish, in our Spanish environment. And Stacy was looking at an initiative of getting the gaming part more involved, looking at gamification. We actually did Playful City here in Eindhoven, which was an instrument also together with universities, looking at how we could trigger people, and especially young people, to discover, for instance, the city, it's the historical part of the city, and get more social engagement through that. But those are all initiatives that they pop up, but they don't have any continuity. It is just like a lot of energy, and the explosion of energy. People like Pokemons or something, and everybody start chasing the Pokemons, and then it's over, and we're back into usual business. How do we get into a kind of a flow that is much more permanent?
In the entertainment culture, if you think of an opera or a musical theater, you've got people who write the story, the plot of the drama. You've got the actors who can get up on stage and be very effective as performers. Then see, then you have the lyricist who writes the lyrics. And each of these talents is kind of self-contained. Some of you know that when it comes to music, I can't carry a tune. Nobody in my family can carry a tune. I can't play an instrument. I don't have any musical talent. I can't read music. I can't compose music, but I can do one thing. I can take existing music and turn it into a song parody by editing the lyrics. That's the one talent I have that connects to music. And if you have people, I mean, I would love to have somebody perform one of my song parodies because I have no idea what they would sound like. So I think it can be done. You can have people who sort of write the script of the drama, people who can perform it, people who can play the music, people who can articulate the lyrics and write the lyrics. And if you have a complete team, you can do a nice little comic opera or musical comedy or whatever you like. And maybe you'll get across the key idea to a larger audience than this small talking heads culture here.
Well, I do have connection there with artists and that who love maybe to look at your lyrics and maybe put music to it. So we can do an experiment there. Stacey.
I just wanted to add, let's not forget about the audience. Because we have to care about what the audience wants and how they want to engage and how we can make them feel included.
Absolutely. But that is how we do experiments. I mean, we may have bright ideas, but do not connect with the audience, may have bright ideas that do connect with the audience. By doing it at a small scale first, then we can expand it if it's successful. That is the type of development that we can organize. Eugen wants to say something.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Except, yeah, it's now 2 hours into the meeting, so.
All right. Oh, your head is getting closer to your.
That's where my head is going to close.
Yeah. All right.
Quickly, with respect to the audience, has anybody ever heard of a group called the Second City? This was a group of improvisational characters. Many of them ended up on Saturday Night Live, starting in this little improvisational troupe in Chicago called the Second City. And they did exactly what Stacey was talking about. They would take hints or suggestions from the audience. And then after about 15 or 20 minutes off screen, they would sort of figure something out. They would do a comedy sketch, a send up that was inspired by a hint or a suggestion from the audience. And, that's when you do song lyrics or song parody lyrics, that's basically where it comes from. It's something from out there that says, okay, I'm going to pick a song that has the right mood and I'm going to edit the lyrics, and it's responding to what's sort of happening, in the milieu out there. So sure, you can do that.
Well, it's beautiful. Yeah, Stacey or Heine. Wow.
Just real quick, I just wanted to say that there's a lot that we can learn from Facebook, even though there's so many negative things about it. When it comes to motivating people to engage, I think there's a lot there that's overlooked. That's all I want to say.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Heine.
Well, I feel enthused, not only that we increased our proportion of women here, but we come to real tangible issues like drama, like comedy, like on stage. And I would recommend that everybody brings out his best practice on how to attract the audience, how to make them think or roar with laughter. And I have an example I can show in 10 minutes, and everybody does. Then we would not only get more broader, faceted, alive people here, because it's not about words. It is really catching emotions and satire and opera, really antagonizing emotions coming into harmony.
Yes. What do you need? Do you need screen sharing, or is everybody still willing to invest those 10 minutes?
No, I'm just offering it for next time. We did something around the Mother Sea, Madrigal Sea, around Chesapeake Bay, around Philadelphia, Baltimore, 20 years ago, where we had role play, where we made all the issues visible through parody and drama and really taking on the other position. I have the video. We translated it from the old video styles to the internet, but I can show it to you, but that would be more than 10 minutes. I was just trying to give you an idea how I feel we have to make the different roles we play in our professional life, in our family life, our academic life, how we make them more visible so people can reflect and learn.
That's interesting. It also, I do another suggestion that what I've done here in local government is a role play. And the role play could be done here with us all together, where people take the stand of a particular partner in a co-creation process, for instance, and we actually take on a particular issue like whatever, anything that is of priority, but the issue, and we just role play it through. Somebody will be citizen, somebody will be government, somebody will be scientist, somebody will be, and then we bring it together. And somebody will be the moderator that's doing it. Or we try to do it in two ways. We take exactly the same challenge and we do it in our old way, which is the economic driven type of politics. And then we do exactly the same in the Sustainocracy way, and then see how it feels in differences. If you like that, that is something that really gets our imagination going into this type of context. We can do various of these kind of things. Role plays. We can do drama. We can invite people who actually sing songs through us. Who do poetry. We can have whatever. You know, it's like beautiful to have this environment to actually see if we can create certain things, and we then invite people to an audience, and we maybe have 200 or 100 people here. We have an agreement. Everybody want to work on this together?
Sure.
Yes.
Song parodies. I'm happy to do song parodies. I've done 200 of them in 20 years.
Right, look at that. Okay, well, then we have you on board. Anybody else? Somebody not wanting to participate? I see smiling photos and smiling people, so. Okay, then we call it for a day today, and I will put the recording up via the YouTube as we agreed, and then there will be a little break in the recordings because my system fell out, so it starts from there. But I think the most lucrative part or interesting part has been coming towards the end, where we came to certain conclusions. All right. So I wish you all a very nice morning, day, afternoon, evening, sleep, whatever, in your time zone. And I hope to see you next week. And if in between, very welcome also.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Bye-bye.
Paul.
Thank you.
Goodbye to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.